Welcome to Career Kopi, where we have real conversations about work, transition, and designing a life that fits you better. I'm your host, Hong Meng, and in each episode, I sit down with people who have made bold, intentional shifts in how they work. Coaches, facilitators, entrepreneurs, creators, and more. If you're rethinking your next step or just need some fresh perspective over Kopi, you are in good company. I'm your host, Hong Meng. Today's guest is Audrey Chia, an expert on copywriting and brand strategy, entrepreneur and speaker who left the world of big ad agencies to build something truly her own. Audrey is the founder of Close with Copy, where she blends creativity and smart use of AI to help businesses grow without losing the human voice. But this conversation isn't about AI or marketing tactics. It's about the quieter choices behind her shift, the fears she had to face, the new skills she had to learn, and the values that keep her grounded as she charts her own path. We'll talk about reinvention, resilience, and what it means to design work that feels aligned with who you are. If you have ever considered making a change or wondered how to stay anchored when you do, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Thank you very much for making time on a Friday morning to speak with me. I really appreciate it because I don't know your routine. I'm sure you have many other things on your plate that you have to attend to. So let's get started. I'm curious to find out what is on your plate right now. How did you get to where you are today?
Those are two extremely big questions. But what's on my plate right now? I think for a lot of the listeners who don't know what I do a bit of AI, copywriting, and content strategy, but they all come together, right? Because my core purpose of why I exist is I love building brands that convert, right? So for me, my medium is copywriting. Do I love copywriting? Not that much. But do I love the results from good copywriting? Absolutely. And that keeps me awake. And that actually allows me to blend different skill sets together, right? To then deliver something more for the audience. So whether it's using AI, whether it's building content strategy, whether it's leveraging a platform like LinkedIn, I think these are all different ways to really help my clients grow. And when they grow, I also feel equally satisfied.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have maybe in the beginning of your career, you started something that brought you into this space. You want to share a little bit about how did you get into this space of copywriting, and at which point did it strike you that copywriting is even a thing? Because for me, I'm very unfamiliar with copywriting as an idea.
Yeah.
So it's
people would be like, oh, so is it law, copyright, or do you copy stuff? What do you do?
Yeah.
The question I used to get. So funny thing was, when I was 13 years old, I saw an ad on TV by a film by Royston Tan about dementia. And then it was one of those very early films where they cut it into like a 1-minute ad. In the past, there didn't used to be such emotional ads. This was the first film that became an ad. And then I thought to myself, one day I'm going to be an award-winning creative director. So I saw that ad on TV and I was 13 years old and I was like, this is my life. I'm going to do this. and that started me on my journey. Right? So I've always wanted to be in advertising. And I managed to get into BBH, one of the top agencies in Singapore. And with them, I worked with brands like Nike, IKEA, Samsung, global brands. I had a wonderful experience there.
okay.
But at the same time, there was a part of me that was thinking, what if you don't have the budget of a Nike? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
And then that got me into another kind of like my side hustle at night, right? Where I would work for startups, scale-ups, SMEs to figure out how do you write copy that converts.
Okay. So you were doing side gigs at that point as well?
I was working nonstop. I had one day job and 5 other side hustles.
Okay. Okay.
And
that's amazing.
in advertising, it was already very demanding. So to do this meant a huge commitment on my end and also learning new skills. So in advertising, they taught you things like creativity, campaign strategy, brand advertising. But when you work with a startup or scale up, they don't have those resources. So you need to be very, very sharp with the copy that you use, very insight driven. And that also meant learning a new skill set. So while I was learning something at work, I was also watching a lot of YouTube videos, reading books, figuring out how to write copy for other clients. And my first gig, right, was I still remember this, a $5 gig on Upwork. So that was my very first gig.
You put yourself up on Upwork?
Yes,
Okay,
correct, yeah.
nice.
And it took me 2 weeks to write that $5 piece of work. And I was so worried that it wasn't good enough because it was my first side hustle, right? But that was like, it reflected a lot of my own values, right? No matter how small or big the project is, I still want to put in the same amount of work and deliver my best. So that still holds true today.
Actually, what drove you at that point of time? Was it discovery that this is something that you really enjoy, or this is maybe a trend that you observe that businesses are getting into it? What was it that drove you?
I think it was something internal for me. Yeah, I love the idea of using creative work to inspire action. So even the film that I saw, right, the creative piece of work inspired me to want to know more about dementia or take care of at that time, my grandmother who was still alive. So these are very emotional triggers, right? So then the idea of can you turn creativity into something more that inspires action? And the way I do things is I come up with creative solutions to solve problems for my clients. So in the past, one client might have always looked at pricing as a way to solve a problem. But with the right copywriting and content strategy, you can shift their value proposition from one that is that of price, which means cheap, to one that is of value, which means for every dollar, you get the bang for your buck. This doesn't mean you're the cheapest, but it means that you're offering more value. And this shift in perspective is actually copywriting, content strategy, human psychology. So all these things, when put together, can really drive amazing results. And I think it's like, for me, solving a creative puzzle, but just using different means.
Did you have this insight when you were already working?
No, I think when I first started, I just thought that it was interesting and I wanted to do something creative. But I didn't know that internally the creativity came from a place of, I want to do creative work to drive impact. So impact actually was the thing I found out only after I kept working. And the reason why I knew this was because in an advertising agency, it's a bit more hierarchical, especially a traditional one.
Yeah.
So I got very frustrated when I was putting out 100 different ideas and clients didn't buy it or didn't see the value of it. Then I was like, how come I come up with so many ideas and nobody want to buy it? Of course, there are many considerations, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I realized it's the impact part that is missing from the work. So there is the creative part, right? But then if there is no impact, I personally don't feel very satisfied. I think that's why I went down the other route of working directly with startups.
So that working directly with startup, that idea was also a side hustle, right? While you were working.
Yes.
And I'm curious about this point that you mentioned about impact. So you get to deploy your creativity into actions for clients to drive some results. And this realization that that's the most important part. You could continue to work for an ad agency or for yourself. I'm curious about that shift.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are, of course, you don't make these types of decisions so easily, especially in Singapore where most people have a very stable 9 to 5. It's very hard to say, you know what, I'm going to take a leap of faith and walk in the other direction. And then all your friends are like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but it's my passion.
Your passions are going to pay you. So there are a lot of all these conversations and thoughts that you also need to have with yourself, right? But I think my turning point internally, the motivation factor was, if I can do this for my clients, why can't I do it for myself? If I'm so confident in driving impact for them, I should be able to then do it for myself, right? And I think that allows me to really test my own skill sets. But beyond that, allows me the freedom to grow very, very quickly, exponentially, I would say. And also it allows me to better understand myself. Of course, is that the first thing I'm going for? Of course not. But during that process of growth, right, I really got to understand myself at a much deeper level, to a point where I would say I'm growing at least 3 times faster than what I would have experienced being a full-timer in a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like you have developed certain beliefs as you were working for an ad agency that, clearly creativity can be translated into corporate results. right? If you take actions, you can translate to real results. And if that is really truly what you believe in, surely it applies even if you are running an outfit for yourself, right? So it's that shift lah. And I think it's a shift of asking yourself the question of whether do you really believe it or not. And I think in this case, it sounds like you really want to put that belief to the test, and that's why you step out and strike out on your own.
Yeah.
Is that the correct way to put it?
Yeah, and maybe one thing also is I work very well with startups is because they always say this, Audrey, do it, whatever it takes. I was like, I know. I think I also have the same mentality in life, right?
Yeah.
If I want to try something, I'm going to go all the way. And I'm going to find different solutions to solve it. So even running my own business also requires a lot of those skill sets of like, okay, you need to think out of the box.
Yeah.
How are you going to find clients? What are you going to do now? Are you going to give up? So all these things are real challenges that mold you and you also grow and mature from.
So how has it been like once you step out? So you've been out for how long?
So I officially launched my consultancy for almost 3 years. Prior to that was the day job plus many side hustles.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has been quite a journey. And I think there was someone who told me early on in my career, like, oh, you're going to work with startups. Good luck to you. And also those are things that I really had to, okay, thanks for that. I will still move on.
What is difficult about working with startup? Like, what was your friend thinking about?
There are things like you don't know if they're going to succeed. I mean, even I myself in a startup, right? I also don't know if I'm going to succeed.
Yeah.
Then there are things where it's less controlled compared to a corporate environment. You're going to face a lot more challenges, which is all true. Okay? So, I mean, going back to the question, like, what would I have told myself back then, or even now? I would say, don't do it unless you're willing to go all out. So you need to, and this is a cliche, right? But if you take this step forward, you need to burn the bridge. Because if you do this without burning the bridge behind you, you will always think, what if I go back to a corporate job? Or what if I go back to my agency life? And if you have that mentality, then you'll always feel a sense of regret in your heart because there's that comparison.
Yeah.
Whereas if you burn it, right, and you're in your mind mentally, you're like, there's no turning back. There's only one way forward. Then all you're going to be focused on is what's next and how do you solve it and how do you build that bridge, even if there's none.
Yeah.
I think that shift really helps a lot.
That sounds quite radical. So you're one of those that believe that I cannot keep hedging and feeling that I have a way out. And if you keep hanging on to that way out, you will not put yourself as fully into your new idea.
I think it's okay to know that you have a way out because that is a safety net for some people. But I think if you are holding on to that and it weighs you down, that is a problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's okay if it doesn't weigh you down and you're okay having that kind of mental safety net and it helps you to grow, then that's good. But if you use that as a way to compare your current state versus your past self, then that could be a potential problem.
Okay. So today, how do you keep yourself motivated and grounded and know that, this is what I want to do and I'm going to continue to learn and grow in this space?
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? I think I've grown a lot over the past few years. I've also learned a lot. And I think the one thing that I know that I need to keep doing is I cannot stop learning. So when I first launched my consultancy, ChatGPT actually came about at like the same period. And one of my clients really dropped me a message. He's like, Audrey, you're going to be replaced. And then he sent me the link to ChatGPT. I think he meant it, He was laughing, but I think he meant it.
ChatGPT is going to steal your customers.
Yes. So that was version 1, like the very early version, right? So then at that time, I just launched. My client told me this. And at that time, the markets weren't doing as well. So I had some clients who were with me, but had to risk the retainers because they weren't confident in their own sales volume. So imagine like all these 3 things at the same time, and you just left the security of your day job. Wow, it can be a lot, right? If you're not, you're not prepared for that. Yeah. So I think what helped me during that time was again that forward-lookingness. Like, so instead of thinking, I shouldn't have left, it should be, what can I do now? What's next? So with all those changes, right, I then learned how to use AI. I became an AI first copywriter, one of the first few who positioned myself this way very strategically. I also learned how to leverage LinkedIn, and I built my own personal brand from 0 to 60K now in just about 2 years. Again, because I had no choice, right? And I was thinking, how do I solve for these two problems? And then I also learned a new skill sets, how to host workshops, which I have never done before.
Face-to-face workshops?
Yeah, face-to-face workshops. I've never done it before. And I've hosted workshops for C-suites, executives in front of thousands of people, because I had to learn. So all these new skill sets only came from a place where I was being forced to grow. But because of the mentality of I'm going to learn, if I don't know something, I learn, it really helped me to grow exponentially. And all these skill sets then stacked on top of each other, which then gave me a very strong foundation when pitching to new clients or prospects.
Okay, so the emergence of LLMs, new AI apps and all that, at a point of time when you just started your business, that provided a challenge, but obviously you have kind of just embraced it fully and in fact use it to position yourself differently. And yeah, you were talking about AI marketing. I think you're the only one that I know in Singapore. But
yeah, I would say like with every challenge comes opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So that's like, how do you see the same coin? Like, which side do you want to look at? Yeah. So I think at that time it was really learning. Okay, it's not going to go away, and I'm also not going to go back to my job. What should I do? Okay, why not combine both?
Yeah.
Then start something new.
Yeah. And it sounds like you are still very excited about the space you're in, and perhaps this is only version 1, and I think that there's a lot of room to grow. I like the fact that you're still very excited. I can hear the excitement in your voice. So perhaps for the people who are out there listening and wondering whether they could do something like you know, move away from their well-trodden path, whether they can actually venture somewhere else the way you have done, what advice would you give them?
I would say, honestly, this path is not for everyone, but it's also not an impossible path to take for anyone, right? So it's not for everyone, but something that anyone can also do. And for someone who is considering, I would also want to ask, what is your motivation or your drive? Because if your motivation is, Audrey, I want more free time, no, you're not going to get that. If your motivation is, Audrey, I want more money, sure, you might, but you need to invest the time.
Yeah.
Your motivation is, Audrey, but I just want to see where life takes me. That is also great. But it comes with also a huge set of challenges. So if you want the upside, you must also be ready to take on the responsibility of everything else that comes with it, right?
Yeah.
I think if you want to make this decision, it's very important to ask yourself why and what is it you're looking for. Just because you don't like your job now doesn't mean that you need to leave a 9 to 5. Just because you don't like a job now, it could also mean that it's not giving you the satisfaction in certain areas. Then I would ask, can another job give you the same satisfaction while giving you the stability and peace of mind? If the answer is no, then that's when you consider doing something by yourself, because you might be looking for that growth potential or that excitement. So using a very systematic, for me, approach to weigh decisions helps me in my process, and it could also help the listeners.
Yeah. So individuals should get clearer about themselves before they kind of make this kind of binary decision of whether should I stay or should I go and just jump. I think there is actually a proper way to think about it, and it has to, in a way, align with your own sense of your values as well.
Yes. I actually had a career coach from school very early on.
School?
Yeah. The school gave us some resources. NTU actually. Yeah. They gave us some resources we could tap on when I was back as an intern. And I remember this career coach told me this, weighing two decisions, right? What's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen? So if you weigh the best and the worst, if you can live with the worst and the best thing outweighs your other option now, then okay, go for it. Oh, that was a really good decision matrix. I can live with it. Okay.
Yeah.
That helped me a little bit in my process.
Yeah. I think I like that kind of question, like the consequence of your action. What is the worst possible thing that can happen here? And if you can live with it and it's not too bad, then go for it, because the upside is maybe limitless.
Yes.
I feel whenever you venture out and try something on your own, whether is it a startup or any other kind of business, I think the upside is really for you to define yourself.
Yeah. And maybe one thing I would add is also, if you want to start something by yourself, you cannot only be good at the thing you're trying to sell. So I cannot only be good at copywriting. I had to learn like other new skill sets, including like sales, including marketing, pitching, client retention, how relationship management. All these are things that nobody teaches you in a usual school setting or job setting, and you might have to pick up like 10 other skill sets alongside your current one, which you want to monetize. So the ability to going back to the ability to learn, and to be open enough to learn fast, I think that it's extremely important.
So be prepared to learn skills and go into areas that you maybe previously didn't think about. Yeah, but if you have that kind of mindset, you should do well in trying to make something for yourself. Anyway, thanks for taking time out to talk to me. Where can people find you today?
Yeah, so if you want to reach out, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Audrey Chia. I also run an AI marketers podcast. It's very cool because I get to speak with other AI first founders around the world, and you can see how the world is already evolving and how every one of us can learn to, embrace tech, but also learn how to pivot and still remain human in this increasingly AI world.
Yeah, thank you very much. I suspect that we may have more conversations after this. So there could be other podcast episodes that we might want to partner together. I certainly hope to get a chance to talk to you again. Right. But thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for tuning in to Career Kopi. If something resonated with you, subscribe, share it with a friend, or drop me a message. Until next time, keep learning, keep evolving, and remember, your career is yours to design.